What's up guys, Flo here. So recently DisguisedToast team, DSG, made it all the way through the qualifiers to VCT challengers. Now I know there are doubters out there that are really wondering how good could an Among Us streamers team really be? And to answer that, they're really good. In this video, I'm going to be pointing out a lot of cool things that DSG did that contributed to them getting into VCT challengers. So buckle up and let's get on to the video. So the first thing we're going to take a look at is actually the pistol round. Both teams are running double controller. First thing I want you to notice is the default wall that is normally thrown from Vipers toward B site, and double controllers especially very common on Pearl, with Astra and Viper just being so strong. The Viper wall not only covers the cross if you decide to hit B and gets you an easy plant, but also covers the bottom of B link, making it hard to spot any pushes through the doors if you're a B player. Now this is going to become important later on in the game, so starting with pistol round, the interesting thing is that Clear is buying the Sheriff. On Viper on the pistol round, it actually makes a lot of sense. Specifically, if you take a look, that the wall does everything you need it to do. You don't really need an orb or mollies, particularly unless you have some sort of post plant strat. And look at the location where Clear is heading toward. Long B, where it's just entire sight lines, and if you watch the series, then you know Clear is an aim god. Now I also want you to pay attention to positioning. While Clear is all the way toward the B side of the map, Steel and the rest of the team are toward the A side of the map. This is a common default that they run on Pearl, and their success rate really shows how good they are, giving like no team more than 4 rounds. But anyway, Killjoy's turret watches mid, no need to worry for a flank. Steel and the gang head toward A, getting this space. The reason why these two controllers are on the extremities is because they are so good at lurking. On pistol round, Clear gets a really good lurk up through the B link towards sewers and catches off a player for free. That's on rounds where they end up going A. For the rounds where they end up going B, Steel ends up becoming the lurk, so it doesn't matter which site that they go to, they always have a lurk in position. All that's left is to have the core 3 members, being Exalt, Gangsta, and Ziff, to rotate toward either controller depending on the site they want to take. Now let's take a little bit of a look at the default utility that Viper does, specifically the wall. The main goal of the wall is obviously to be able to hit B, covering a lot of the angles of the deeper site, allowing your team to scale up as close as possible before they execute. But there's also an additional part where if you kind of look at the bottom of B link, the wall actually covers that little edge where naturally a B player that wants to pivot from watching long B to watching doors would go. This little extension is what makes this wall multi-purpose, and this link area is avoided by a lot of teams because it's a hard area to fight. But DSG isn't really scared to do this, even when getting shut down by this insane setup by Oxygen, where they have a one-way orb, a Killjoy, a Larbot, and a Molly, all for the door push. They still end up going there later in the round. Specifically, some cool takes of this link area is this. Exalt has a lineup knife that lands toward the sewers area. Unfortunately, with this one instance, Oxygen's fade was right outside of its zone. But in most other instances, this probably would have worked great. It tells you as the attacker when you're swinging through the doors, do I need to be focusing on the sewer side or do I need to be focusing at the bottom of link? When the score is 4-3 in favor of DSG, they head toward this link area again, this time cramming 4 players toward the top of B link, showing that they're not scared to fight for this area. They go through, they just post up, and eventually one of the Oxygen players needs to check, which gets them killed. After killing the bottom link player, they continue taking more space here, checking the sewer side with the haunt, and when the haunt's broken, like Toast says, Exalt throws a cool flash where basically he just makes it as blatantly there as possible. And with that being thrown, the Killjoy needs to decide, do I look away from the flash or do I stick? The Killjoy is then forced to need to look away from it, and Exalt swings before the flash even pops. Basically, the Killjoy is stuck with 2 really bad options. If he continues staring down the lane, then he gets full blind, but if he looks away, he also dies. So it's kind of between a rock and a hard place. The last thing that they do toward link is super cool. So we already talked about that one time where the KO knife kind of missed, and basically because of it, they lost the pick. So in this instance, it's actually a fade seize lineup along with a pullback smoke. You're gonna see if someone was in the same place, they would have gotten seized and stuck inside a fake smoke, inside of which they would have expected it to stay up because they probably wouldn't have known it was going to be a fake smoke and would have likely died. I'm curious to why Exalt had his molly out. I think this was a play that was already discussed beforehand. This could have gotten him killed, but in this case there was no one there, so it didn't really matter. Honestly, it was just a really cool play. If this was an adaptation, that's even more insane, but even so, this is a pretty normal angle for defenders to hold, so doing this is actually a really smart idea. All right, so you might be thinking, Flo, you're talking a lot about this B link area. Why does this even matter? Well, on the map Pearl, the link area a lot of the times is the most ignored area because it's so hard to take, but it also gives you access to so many more areas of the map. If you don't have link, the only real viable strategies are a B long push, an A split through art, or just a full A hit through A main. With an AWP posted on B and 3 players stacked toward A, you're gonna have a hard time going toward anywhere. Once you put enough pressure on this link area, the defenders are now forced to change it up and need to respect the fact that you are willing to take these fights. If you decide to take link, guess what you can do? You can run all the way down toward B and split it that way. You can go into sewers and split art that way, or even lurk into their spawn. The possibilities are much more endless, and it slows down the defender's rotations from site to site really heavily. You'll see Oxygen's response is actually to have Scuba play alone in his Viper's pit very often. That way they can stack a ton of players toward A site and force DSG to pick one of the two avenues, fight more players or fight through a Viper's pit. So on this round, they actually kind of get wrecked here. They decide to go through a Viper's pit and Scuba kills 3 of them with the judge. Unlucky. But then later on in the game, you might be asking, why are they doing it again? Well, in this case, it actually makes a lot more sense solely because Fade has ult here. Fade's ult sweeps the entirety of the pit. Prowler comes out to scan to follow exactly where she is, and that forces Viper to need to leave. And since they know that Viper is usually the one soloing, well, in that case, if you know you can push her out of her ult, then that is actually the weaker site by a mile. At least way easier than fighting 4 players on the other one. On the first pistol round of the defending side, Steel actually just shows a lot of intuition here. Gangsta throws a Fade haunt toward the A main area and scans nobody. Obviously, we're the observers, so we know that people are hiding from the haunt. Steel takes this opportunity, seeing that nobody got scanned, to pull back his star and take the orb. Then he kind of jiggle peeks to spot for A main. By doing this, he does spot the Oxygen players retaking A main, and you'll see him slowly backing out, careful of being run up on. This round is just like a little favorite of mine. Nothing special specifically happens, but you'll see that the plant is going down. There's a sage wall here. Art. 3 players of DSG are here, and their mollies are being thrown to kill whoever's the planner. The planner does get killed, but when you turn around, you'll notice that Exalt has been holding the flank the entire time, and I just think that this is something that's really great to see, because I see a lot of people that are just generally get tunnel vision and just want to apply so much pressure that they don't realize that the flank is actually the only way they lose this round, that they kind of just forget that a flank can exist. And throughout the entire game, Exalt has been throwing crazy flashes, being hyper aggressive as a KO should be. It's really nice to see that he also has the ability to play passive and be that supportive teammate. For all the Toast fans out there, I know this round kind of hurt because it looks like since the Prowler didn't spot Pony in this corner, they lost the round. But in reality, that's not really true. There's a lot of instances where you can notice that the moment this haunt is thrown, Pony is actually the one that breaks it, and DSG knows that no one has crossed out ever since planting the spike, so someone is still there. Now, the reason why this ended up happening is Steel actually drops a smoke in front of the wall so that they can more easily isolate the player on the spike. But the unfortunate part is when Steel runs through the smoke, Pony kills him and accidents the other person in the smoke.
Sneaky spot by the sage. Well done.
It was actually a really cool play, and I would say that 9 out of 10 times that works. The smoke then later doubles as cover for sticking the spike. A really good idea when you only have 1 smoke. The last thing is, let's talk about some cool Viper tech, because this Viper ult from clear is really insane. From art, it goes all the way through mid, somehow loops through to also cover the doors. Now, this is just a ton of value. This essentially says there is no mid flanks, there is no art split. You have to rush through one of the extremities. Good luck. This one is definitely good for rank. All right, so let's move on to Ascent, the final map that DSG needed to be able to qualify. I pulled up the VLR and I saw that Oxygen was actually the one to pick Pearl and DSG picked Ascent. So Oxygen picked defending on Pearl, which makes sense, and on Ascent, DSG picked attack, which seems kind of weird. Ascent is notoriously known as a defense map, so it sounds counterintuitive to pick the attack side. There are some benefits to it. It's mostly mental though. It's the fact that if you get attacked first, you don't have as much pressure, as on the defense, you almost feel that every round you're losing on the defense is a detriment rather than the mindset on the attack where it's every round that you gain is just bonus. There could also be some other mind games where it's the fact that Oxygen is coming off of a very big loss. As a defenders, they're likely to make a lot more mistakes by getting very aggressive to try to make up for the last map, but honestly, it's a lot of speculation. They were definitely ready for the attack side though, as you'll see. The first thing you want to notice is that they're always willing to play slow, and they'd actually rather play slow. They catch so many aggressive pushes through this stun dash dart combo toward A main, and it never works a single time for OXG. Like, not a single time.
Oh my god, how did they know?
Also, to answer Toast's question, it's actually pretty simple. Oxygen is down 0-3, it's an eco round. You need to treat every round as relatively winnable. Are they going to be sitting back and doing a default? Are they going to sit back and just play standard? With no guns, they have no advantage playing a standard game. So what do? They play numbers, and they try to get some level of advantage that will help them into the later rounds. For example, the orb. This slow play wastes utility, makes it really hard for the defenders to ever read the attacking team because everything could be a fake, and you could slowly clear all the traps that might be set around the map. This doesn't happen just once. This happens on almost every eco round, and it really molds well into their already slow and methodical style of taking the map. Nothing is ever really rushed. I also just want to point out, this is funny as hell. Steel is probably commenting, I got dart here. I don't know what he's looking at, but nice. Now, I know an op seems scary, but it looks like Steel is pretty aware of it with the TP toward the top of the box to avoid this offer. Now, why is this easily readable? Well, the easiest one is to say, just check the money. Jet's got enough money to get it, or someone's got enough money to buy an op. There could be an op. Be careful of an op. While that is also true, I want you to also think about the mental. You are down 0-4. You lost your pistol round. You lost the first gun round. If you lose this round, you almost can't even come back. So what are you going to do? You're going to try to make a play, usually having your op trying to get a pick, while the rest of your team plays really safe and standard to make sure no one on your team gets picked. And if you look at how DSG is playing, that's exactly what they're playing against. Everyone is sitting outside of B main. They're not even peeking B main. Mid peeks do not come out without some level of utility, whether it be a Killjoy turret or a Sova drone, pushing Pony all the way back into spawn so that they get no early picks. So I also want to take a second to mention Clear. This dude is a monster. He do not miss ever. I'm serious. The fact that he played Viper and then swapped to Jet is already a statement in itself, as they're really two very different play styles. But while this is a very standard Jet execute onto site, I still want to talk about it. A smoke top Jenny, an updraft, and then a dash into the smoke makes all the defenders on site need to worry about him first. Now he doesn't even need to immediately push out of the smoke. He could just sit in it, but what he's really waiting for is Gangsta's dart to land and hopefully scan somebody so he can get a kill. If none of that happens, the rest of the team is just flooding out. This Jenny player is kind of stuck here, needing to worry about what's on top, as well as all the players flooding out. A lot of this is just really well coordinated and really well timed. There's no lacking, and it's not like your ranked games where half the team is behind the smoke and half the team is on site. Everyone comes out. Toast also brings up this 6 strat.
It's alright, this is good because now when they lose, they don't get as much money.
That's exactly what I say in my ranked game. Alright, let's talk a little bit about our friend Exalt on the KO. In this 1v2 clutch, he just rotated from A and he's making the B line toward B. He has very little time on the clock, yet before he goes and decides to plant, he swings spawn. Now this is actually the play. As crazy as it sounds, playing into a 1v2 is generally pretty hard, especially at the HP he's at. Taking a fight while the defenders will likely think you're just planting because the time is so low, and therefore are likely just running toward A with their knives out, might guarantee you a single kill before you go and plant, making the post plant 1v1, which is way more doable. He doesn't really get the chance this time, but this is definitely a really good thought process. I also just want to say that Steel is a rat, and I know that Toast says this like 90 billion times during the game, but it's kind of true. This is such a funny kill because I would be so annoyed. Basically here, Steel sees the Astra close to market. He fires a few shots from the Vandal, then pulls out his shorty and plays close. Now this Astra is definitely just thinking, oh, he's going to be posted up with a Vandal. I need to be slow clearing because since one headshot is all that matters. But then he just gets instantly destroyed by a shorty, and that play probably didn't even exist in his mind. Steel has a common trend of buying the shorty as a secondary pistol. With it being so cheap, it does make sense, especially since you always have smokes you could likely play around. I would just be pissed. On the topic of Steel, he uses his Omen TPs so well. Like throughout the entire game, whether it be TPing to avoid ops, TPing to a back boat, TPing aggressively onto site, it really shows how much he's in their head. Look at this round where he's just back boat. The sound of the TP caused severe trauma where he just thought that he was inside the smoke when Steel was nowhere near, and I don't even think there was an angle for him to TP there. But that's what he thought. It really shows how he's living in there rent-free. Now, I didn't really speak about Gangsta, but he does make this really good play on Ascent. It doesn't end up panning out into a round win, but it was required for that possibility to even exist. 2 players get picked really quick on the A site hit. Gangsta just literally beelines it straight from mid all the way through tree, running through 2 layers of smoke to catch off 3 players, 2 on site and 1 running through A main. He doesn't even check tree. He literally just ignores everything else because he understands that speed is the key and that he has a timing window as Jet just got through tree and is dashing onto site, plus there's a smoke there. If he waits any longer, they will be aware of the tree angle again. On this round 11-8, the funny thing is in the first 3 seconds, you know exactly where Oxygen is going. A knife top mid tells you that nobody's there. A dart outside of B scans all of outside of B, and DSG rotates accordingly with almost 5 players on the A site before the site exec even happens. Now honestly, this is personally my only complaint, is I feel like Zift had no need to ult here. You actually want them to come onto A. There's no better site for them to attack besides the site that you have all your players on. Not ulting here might have enticed them to continually run into the stack and maybe win out the round in the end, but instead Oxygen actually rotates toward B and they end up winning in post plan. All right, the last thing I have to say isn't anything really specifically fancy. Here Steel makes a play. Steel picked up this off a couple rounds ago, and now on this B exec, it seems like he just decides to YOLO through the B smoke. Now this actually just in general kind of makes a little bit of sense. It is already kind of an eco round, so they're more expected to lose it. He decides to make a play rather than just sitting behind the smoke and letting his teammates with bad guns in the back of site try to hold. He gets a pick, immediately teleports onto site, and then chooses a spot where he can just post up and only have to look at one angle. Now obviously these are pros, but let me explain it for the newer players. Instead of what would seem like a good position playing back of default where you can watch both the lane and the stairs, he decides to focus on one. This is because with an operator, it's very hard to switch between 2 angles. He tucks himself to the left side of the default box so that he doesn't have to worry about his lane run up. He probably likely is telling his teammates, I have stairs, you guys watch lane. People are peeking stairs, it happens, there's a lot of things going on, but you'll see how he immediately gets his and then posts up to guarantee he at least gets a second. Clear ends up coming in to save the day, so it's really unneeded, but really solid game mechanics nonetheless. Now, with that being said, that wraps up this video. I just want to take a little bit of time out of my day to really highlight some of the cool plays that I've been seeing from such a good team. They literally didn't drop a single match through the challengers, and I can really see why. Really excited to see how DisguisedToast team matches up with the other big name teams, but I'm sure it'll be a good match. Anyway, with that being said, I hope you guys enjoyed. I'll see you guys in the next one. Flow out.